In training camp, the Detroit Lions have had a certain amount of players that have absolutely distinguished themselves from the rest of the pack, and they're absolutely red hot. But there are other players that are absolutely struggling, and they are ice cold. We're going to talk about these players in today's episode as it was apparent in practice. Stay tuned.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10, 5, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions fans, and welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. So, as we all know, the Lions just wrapped up yet another day of training camp practice. I think we're on day 9 right now. But anyway, pretty much everybody's already released their observations, and I'm going to say this right now. Pretty much what I got from the observations, whether it was Tim Twentyman, whether it was Justin Rogers, whether it was Mike Payton, didn't matter. I got this extreme, how should I dare say it, kind of vibe that there was a dichotomy, if you will, between certain types of players at camp. And what I'm talking about is which players are showing out and which players are not showing out, because I'm telling you this right now, this practice report observation that I got from literally all 3 of them pretty much all said the same thing. That there are certain players that continually keep showing out, they continually keep stepping up, and they are distinguishing themselves from the rest of the pack. Now, that's not to say that they're the only ones that are doing this. I'm just simply saying these are the guys that continually show up almost every single report as like, wow, they are doing something really, really good, really, really special. And for those that are on the opposite end of the spectrum, that, are not doing anything at all or just doing a lot of bad things, those are the ones that I am talking about as being ice cold. Now, for some, it might be a recent set of events. For others, it might be something that's been going on for quite a while. But I decided that I was going to make an episode based upon that dichotomy because it feels like that there are certain players in camp that are really doing well and there are other players that are really struggling right now. So let's talk about it here. Let's talk about who's red hot right now, who is absolutely burning it up, tearing it up, absolutely showing out in camp. The first name we got to talk about has got to be Daurice Fountain. I mean, dude, this guy, like I said, the entire freaking OTAs, mini camp, and now we're in training camp, this guy's name just keeps on popping up, and he continues to impress and make plays. And I'm saying this right now. Because of what he is doing, he is literally having his name spoke into existence to make this roster. It's like, dude, when you have podcasters like myself that are talking about him, when you have the media that are asking Dan Campbell about him, and then Dan Campbell has to talk about him, that right there that should tell not everybody else, but also tell himself he's doing a good job. Because when people have to ask you questions about how well you're performing in practice and what the coach thinks about it, that right there means you are getting people's attention, and you're getting people's attention in a good way. And again, today's practice on the Friday was no different. He made the first touchdown grab of practice. So it's like, okay, that right there is great news. It's like, again, this is a guy that is going out there. He is doing his job. He's making the right routes. He's making catches, tough catches. He's making catches for touchdowns. That's what you want out of a wide receiver, even if it is a wide receiver 3, because that's what he's competing for right now. But you need to have reliable wide receivers. And every single time that I've heard this guy's name, all I keep hearing is reliable. Every single time. He's out there, he's doing his job, he's making catches. It might not be the most flashy, but he's reliable. And that fact that he is consistent, that is something that we ought to remind ourselves about what Josh Reynolds was for the most part. He was reliable, he was consistent. He wasn't a flashy player, but he was reliable. And that's exactly what Daurice Fountain is providing right now. He is a reliable, consistent player. He's consistently making regular catches, tough catches. He's making catches for touchdowns. He's doing his job, and might I add, he's doing it against some pretty stiff competition. So, that's player number 1, absolutely red hot. Player number 2 that's red hot, Ennis Rakestraw. Again, Rakestraw was one of those guys, I've admitted it, I've said it before. I had some serious doubts about him coming into the whole training camp. But this guy has really worked his tail off. He has busted his behind, and he has done amazing compared to what I thought he was going to do. For the third straight practice, he garnered an interception. For a rookie cornerback to be doing that, that is impressive. That is something you want to hear. You want to hear these cornerbacks, especially the rookie ones, that are making rapid progression. And it seems like Enos Rakestraw is definitely making rapid progression. When you get 3 straight practices in a row where you're getting an interception, that's you showing 2 things. Number 1, you know where you're at. You're in the right spot at the right time. But also number 2, you have a penchant. You have a nose to find the football. And for a cornerback, that is absolutely something you want to have because it means that you are great at generating turnovers. And one thing that defenses, especially defensive coordinators, want, they want guys that can generate turnovers, whether it's fumble, whether it's an interception, they don't care. They want turnovers because turnovers are game changers. They will shift the momentum to your side of the field in an instant. And when you take a look at what Enos Rakestraw is doing, his camp has been both strong, but it's also been refreshing for that cornerback position because you have to think about it. For the last however many years, the cornerback position has been absolutely dreadful. Our cornerbacks have been literally carved up like Thanksgiving turkeys. They have been downright awful, just trash. And the fact of the matter is that when we got guys like Carlton Davis, we got Enos Rakestraw, we've got Terrion Arnold, and these guys are actually going out there and they're making it hard for these wide receivers to catch passes by putting sticky coverage on them. Plus, on top of that, like Enos Rakestraw, you're getting interceptions in practice. That shows that these guys are really making progress and they're stepping up, and we should see some good, play from the cornerback room this year. And it's something I'm really excited about. So that's player number 2 that is really red hot, that's really doing a good job right now. The next player that's doing really well, really good, red hot, is Aiden Hutchinson. Again, Aiden Hutchinson, we already knew what he was going to be. I mean, for crying out loud, every single year since he's gotten in, he has shown steady progression. But this camp, I'm telling you this right now, even if you go back to last year's camp and everyone was raving about him, this camp, he is getting even more attention. He's getting even more possible, raving about what his ability is to be a problem for our offensive line because it is all over every freaking practice report. Hutchinson has continued to be a problem. He has continued to be a terror for our offensive linemen. And that's because he has continued to expand his disruptive ability to get after the quarterback, to get to the football, to find a way to be a problem, to be just a person that makes your life a living hell as an offensive lineman or just as an office in general. And you think about it. Last year, when he went from his rookie year to his second year, he made a big leap. But now I'm expecting that because of what we're hearing in practice and how even further along he is compared to what I thought he might have been at this point, I'm expecting him to take another exponential leap this year. And you got to think about it. With other guys that are really showing out, or guys that we signed and we have not seen yet but are expecting them to be good, such as Levi Onwuzurike, such as DJ Reader, such as Aleem McNeil, all those guys in tow, dude, this defensive line is going to become a terror of the NFL. I'm telling you this right now. If not for, I'm telling you, whether it's the running backs we face or the quarterbacks we face, they are going to have a nightmarish problem trying to hand our guys up front because it's like, dude, everything we're hearing is that these guys are absolutely making our offensive line struggle, and our offensive line is considered the best, the only elite one in the NFL. That right there ought to tell you something about how damn prolific, how damn destructive our defensive line is. So, Aiden Hutchinson along with all those other guys, absolutely red hot. Player number 4 that's red hot, Jared Goff. I've been saying it all offseason. I've been saying it ever since we've started. But Jared Goff has been absolutely laser focused. And he has been surgically precise in practice. Again, a lot of people were worried that once he got his contract that somehow he was going to revert back into what he was, with the whole Sean McVay nonsense. But it's like ever since he's gotten paid, ever since he has gotten that assurance, that security, that reassurance that he is going to be here long term, that he is the Detroit Lions quarterback, he has gotten even better. He has gotten gotten even more precise, more focused, more accurate, more of a leader, and that right there is something that is very crucial, very key when we're talking about Jared Goff. And when you're talking about Jared Goff, some of the things we've already known about him: accurate as hell, smart as hell, absolutely knows what he's doing on the field. But something on Friday's practice that we're talking about absolutely showed up for the first time that I have not really seen a whole lot of out of previous practice reports. There were people that were talking about how Jared Goff was absolutely slinging it. He was absolutely throwing it with power, with zip. Apparently, Goff zipped some throws that were so hard that guys actually dropped the passes. There was one I think I remember reading. I think they said that Goff zipped a ball to Jameson Williams, and it went into his chest so hard that he dropped the ball. Like, Jameson Williams couldn't get a handle on the pass because Goff was just throwing missiles. That's not something we've heard a whole lot with Jared Goff in the past. But it sounds like not only has Jared Goff upped his game in terms of accuracy, in terms of understanding of the offense, but he's gotten even more strength in that arm. He's gotten even stronger. He's gotten even more ability to, expand and diversify himself within this offense. And that right there shows that Goff is clearly in his zone, and he has complete mastery not only of himself as a quarterback, but he has complete mastery of the offense. Now, those are the guys that are primarily the ones that I wanted to talk about for being red hot. Obviously, there are other guys we could talk about. We could talk about Jameson Williams. We could talk about Jahmyr Gibbs. But it's like, listen, I'm trying to talk about the ones that were primarily hot at this practice, but also that have been hot over the last couple of practices. Again, I could talk about J-Mo, Jahmyr Gibbs, and a bunch of others, but that video would take forever. So, those are the four that I wanted to focus on because those were the ones that were really, really highlighted in the camp observations. Now, let's talk about the ones that are ice cold. Let's talk about the ones that are not doing very well, that are struggling. The first one we got to talk about is probably the one that everybody's focusing on, is probably the one that a lot of people are going to make individual videos about, but I decided, no, I'm not doing that. It's got to be Jake Bates. I'm telling you this right now. I was ecstatic as hell when we signed Jake Bates, and there was all of this fanfare, there was all of this excitement, there was all of this jubilation about him being signed and coming into training camp, and as soon as he got into training camp, it was good. He had a practice where he went 6 for 6. It looked like, hey, you know what? He is on his way. But ever since that practice, all of that red-hot fanfare, all of that excitement, it has turned icy damn cold. Because, think about it, folks, over the last couple of practices, we have heard how he has struggled with accuracy. Not necessarily with power, but he has struggled with accuracy. Whether it's he's missing a couple of kicks in practice, whether he's missing a lot of kicks in practice. And the point of the matter is that the reports I keep hearing, whether, again, it's from Peyton, whether it's from Rodgers, whether it's from Tim Twentyman, is that they're all expressing that they believe the Lions are going to bring in a kicker pretty damn soon to compete with Jake Bates for the job. Because according to Tim Twentyman, Jake Bates only made 8 out of 14 kicks today as far as field goals and 5 out of 6 extra points. Now, let's understand something here. Again, Jake Bates is trying to transition to the NFL. He is trying to get all that under his belt, and he's trying to make sure that he's got that all together. But at the same time, kicking is kicking. The fact that he's having some problems, it is a little bit concerning. But if there's one thing I know about kickers is that kicking is kind of like something that's mostly mental. If you can get the mental aspect down, the physical will definitely follow through. If you have confidence in yourself, then you'll be able to go out and play. And it doesn't sound like Jake Bates lacks for any confidence. I think more than anything, it's just him trying to adapt to the NFL style, adapt to the NFL level of competition, and everything else. And I think once he's finally got a grip on that, he'll be fine. So what I'm trying to say is while he is icy cold right now, while he's not been doing too particularly well over the last couple of practices, I still have faith in him. I have not given up on Jake Bates, but he's definitely got to get himself under control. He's definitely got to find a way very quickly to get himself back in the good graces and back into being on the good side of these reports. So that's player number 1 that's struggling right now. Player number 2 that's struggling right now. I know I am going to catch flack for this. And I'm sorry, but I can't hide it. I'm not going to try and sugarcoat it. It's got to be Hendon Hooker. I'm sorry. I know people do not want to hear this, but I'm sorry. We have heard it now from multiple observations. Again, whether it's been Tim Twentyman, whether it's been Justin Rogers, whether it's been Mike Payton, whether it's been anybody, they've all noticed how Hooker is struggling at practice, and he is having some really big struggles. Now, again, It's not all the damn time, but it is more often than not. Again, there are plays where Hendon Hooker just absolutely has a wow factor. It's absolutely spectacular types of plays he's making, whether it's with his legs or his arm. But again, for every 1, 2, 3 of those plays, there's like 5, 6, 7 that follow right after that are just like head scratchers. And you're like, I don't understand where your brain is at. And again, the fact that he's continuing to make these very basic mistakes is very troubling. Again, it was reported by pretty much all the guys I've been mentioning that he had multiple picks at today's practice. But the one that keeps coming up is how there's a specific play, a specific route where it's an out route, and he keeps throwing interceptions on this specific type of route. And right there, that tells me that there is a massive problem. Again, the out route is one of the most difficult routes for a quarterback to throw, but it's also a very simple concept to understand. You have to make sure that that ball is right out in front of your wide receiver to where either he can get it or nobody can get it, and you don't telegraph it. But yet every single time, what I'm hearing from these reports is that when freaking Hendon Hooker throws that pass, it's behind and it's well short of the wide receiver, and it always winds up getting picked. That's a problem because it doesn't show that he's adapting. It doesn't show that he's learning from the mistakes. Again, we've heard Dan Campbell talk about this with other players. It's like, hey, if they go out and make a mistake, they learn from the mistake, they don't make it again. But what I'm hearing is Hendon Hooker is continuing to make some of the same mistakes over and over again. That's not good, especially when he is trying to compete for the number 2 job. Again, I understand it, that this is technically his first training camp. I understand this is his first time taking real live reps and actually competing for a job. But it's like, listen, I and everybody else knows that he is much more physically talented and gifted than Nate Sudfeld. And the fact that Nate Sudfeld is outperforming him in practice is a big worry. Now, whether or not that's going to continue into next year, I don't know. But the fact that it's happening right now, that's the situation that we find ourselves in. And that is why not only I, but a lot of other people are starting to get really concerned about what's going on with our backup quarterback position. So that's player number 2 that's struggling. Player number 3. This one actually was a real big shocker for me because I thought for certain this guy was going to do something. This is Donovan Peoples-Jones. Many people, myself included, like I just said, all thought that Donovan Peoples-Jones was going to be in the mix to be not only in the mix, but possibly the leader for the wide receiver 3 job. Because it's like, hey, he was with the team last year, he's got the right size, he's got the right build, he has the experience. It's like, okay, this guy should be in the running to get that job. But like I just said at the very beginning of this episode, the guy that's actually stepping out the most and making the most plays, making the best case for himself to be that wide receiver number 3 is Fountain. And because of that, that has all but derailed DPJ's chances or idea of possibly being the wide receiver number 3. And at this point, he is having such a hard time standing out that it might be possible that he might not even make the roster. Which again, considering the fact that this is a guy that almost had a 1,000-yard receiving season at one point, and other guys like freaking Fountain and others have not had nearly the same amount of production as he has had, or the amount of experience, that right there is a kind of like a head scratcher, because I thought for certain that Donovan Peoples-Jones was going to be the best candidate for wide receiver number 3, and at this point, he is struggling. He's not making a difference. He's not separating himself from the rest of the wide receivers that are competing for that job, and that's a big problem for him. But anyway, I decided I was going to put this episode together, talk about the guys that I thought were doing really, really well. Didn't mention all of them, just like I didn't mention all the guys that I thought were doing kind of poorly right now. I just wanted to talk about the guys that, number 1, we're mostly focused on in the practice report for today, but the guys that the most recently were making a bunch of headways, whether it's good or bad. But having said that, I'm going to end the episode and say thank you all for watching another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. Also encourage y'all to do one of these 3 things. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Please subscribe. It really helps me out, and I'm thankful for every subscription I can get my hands on. But I also want to encourage y'all, please, make sure you hit that bell notification icon at the bottom of the page so that way you guys never miss any more content that I push out. Again, we need to have people continually coming back to the channel because that's what really helps the channel grow. That's what helps spread the recommendations on YouTube. So please, make sure you hit that notification icon so that way you guys never miss any more content that I push out. I also want to encourage y'all, please, to share the content with your Lions friends and family members. Again, the more we can share it, the greater the reach and recommendations it gets on YouTube. So again, it not only helps the channel grow, but we also get more people in to have greater discussions about the Lions and also the video content. That's something I've been noticing. We're not getting a whole lot of interaction or comments from the viewership. So let's try and get that up. Let's try and share. Let's try and comment. Let's have some better discussions. And with that being said, I hope everybody has enjoyed the content. I hope everybody is having a blessed day. I hope everyone is, doing great. I hope you guys got something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. God bless. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.